Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Smart Start with Skills with me, Tracy B. Allen, and Julia Molly. And as you know, we are the co-owners of Skhillz Academy, and we are here just to talk to you about the educational components of being an American and being educated in America. So, here's some statistics for you. Today's topic is the American literacy crisis, and I want to let you know that in 2024, 69% of US fourth graders and 33% of eighth graders scored below the proficient reading score. Okay. And this is coming from Stern Center of Language and Learning and also from the National Literacy Institute. The numbers are alarming. Also, to compound it and tell you about adults, 21% of adults in the US are illiterate. As of 2024, 21% of adults in America are illiterate, and 54% of Americans have a literacy score below the sixth grade level. And we're talking about reading and comprehension. Okay. So when you add those two together, you're getting 75% of American adults are either illiterate or have a reading comprehension score below a sixth grade level.
Yes.
If that doesn't alarm you, I don't know what will.
And
That
so
means there's only 25% of Americans that read above a sixth grade level.
just to add in to what Tracy is sharing, according to the NAEP, let's talk about what proficiency actually means.
Thank you, Jesus.
Because proficiency means solid academic performance at grade level.
Mhm.
Students at this level can understand, interpret, and analyze appropriate for their grade level. They show competency in locating information, making inferences, and drawing conclusions from different types of reading materials. That is
As a
what
former English language arts educator, which I can say I still am, making inferences and drawing conclusion. When I tell you that is the hardest thing for most students to understand, it is. It wasn't until I was getting ready to leave education that I broke the barrier. I'm like, okay, I know exactly how to get them to understand this. Okay. And I taught it to all the other teachers in my department because nothing that we were doing was working. Like nothing. They just couldn't get it. There were a handful. So if you had a class, because I taught middle school, so you're talking about 30 students, sometimes more. I had classes with 36 students. And that is, yeah. And you're talking about 4 or 5 periods per day with that many students. Because at some point in time, we went to the block schedule. So that was 90 minutes. But you're talking about educating about 100 students a day, right? And of those 100 students, I can tell you that probably only 10% of them could make inferences and draw conclusions.
Mhm. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Because it's an abstract concept.
It is. It
Able
is.
to draw
So,
conclusions
sometimes we get
and
frustrated.
abstract.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, 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 that's fine. I said it.
Like sometimes we get frustrated because we're online and we're all looking at the same video and the commentary that comes out of that video, you're like sitting there going, what? Did we watch the same thing? And then you second guess yourself, right? So you go back and you watch the video again and you listen to everything that was said. And then you're like, okay, I'm not crazy. How did they come to that conclusion? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The statistics tell you why.
Mhm.
The statistics tell you why, because reading comprehension and auditory are the same. You have to be able to understand what you read to understand. So if you, even if you're hearing it, you're still not processing the comprehension component of it. And that is why sometimes you're having conversations with people and you're getting so frustrated because you're like, this is an easy concept to understand, and you can't understand why
Mhm.
the other person cannot understand it. That's because 75% of the population is either illiterate or reading below the sixth grade level. So you have to have patience with most of the people who you are communicating with on a regular
Mhm.
basis, because really and truly, they're not functioning on the same level as the other 25% who expect them to function on that same level when it comes to comprehension.
And it just means that there were some foundational stages
Issues. Hmm.
in the actual reading process,
Hmm.
wherever that gap took place. And because our system of education just says push forward, so you just end up pushing forward. And so, as we are pushing our children forward into the system, so for example, as a former high school principal, one of the first things I always did at the very first orientation with my ninth graders was I apologized to them and their parents. That's the first thing I did.
Oh my
I
goodness.
apologized to them. I apologized to them because I would tell them, I said, hey guys, what you did in middle school, you can't do in high school. I know what happened in
Mhm.
middle school. You went to sixth grade. You probably weren't, some of you weren't successful. And then they sent you to summer school and then they put you in seventh grade. And in seventh grade, you said, oh, yippee, I got away with it. I'm in seventh grade. And so you
Mhm.
did the exact same pattern again. You
Yeah,
did perform below grade level. They put you in summer school and they pushed you on to eighth grade. And now you're here in high school and I can't do that. So basically, what I'm saying is those gaps have carried through into your high school and to your adult stages because they were never addressed. And that's the beauty about Skhillz Academy. We're not pushing students through based on you just need to be at the next level. We're meeting
yeah.
students where they are, creating individualized plans, filling the gaps, and then moving you along at your own individualized pace.
Absolutely. Because we're big on assessment, right? So every child that comes into Skills Academy is assessed to see where they are on their reading and math levels. And then we create, like Julia said, an individualized plan for your child to meet them where they are, to take them to where they need to be. If they're already where they need to be, then we're going to take them to the next level. Okay. Because your child really should not be reading on a grade level. They should be reading above a grade level. And reading encompasses not only calling words. So let's talk about that for a minute. So
Mhm.
reading is phonetic, right? So there are some words that you have to memorize, right? Those are your sight words. And then you have the phonetic words, right? So you have to learn phonics, which is something that was taken out of a lot of schools for a very long time. I think we're now getting back to it. So understanding how to decode words, how to break them down so that even if you see the hardest word, you know phonetically how to sound that word out. That is one component of reading. Then there's a component that I like to call just calling words. So I've had students in the past who are great at calling words. If you needed a passage read in class, you can count on them to read it for you. They're going to read it loud and proud and with all of the emotions that is necessary to get that piece of reading done expeditiously and to keep the audience engaged.
Mhm.
But these same students, if you ask them what they just read, they have absolutely no idea. They're great word callers. Okay, that's what I coined it as. They really can just bellow out words and just be really dramatic with it, but they do not understand. They do not have recall. They cannot recall anything that they just read. Okay. So that's another, being able to call words is necessary. You need to be able to do that in order to read, right? The verbalization of reading. But the other component that comes along with being a good reader is comprehension. So if you are reading and you cannot comprehend what is being read, you're not a good reader.
Right.
You're a good word caller. I'm hoping I'm not losing anybody here, right? Because reading is phonetics, it's
Mhm.
remembering your sight words, being able to call the words out, being able to read fluently, it's fluency,
Fluently.
and then being able to comprehend what you have read and answer questions based on that comprehension. So the who, what, when, why, and how, and where and how. So the five W's and the H. You should be able to answer those questions after you've read a passage. And if you cannot answer those questions, your child cannot answer those questions, there's a comprehension gap that needs to be filled.
Mhm.
And I want to just give you some strategies because I don't want to just talk at you guys and just say, oh, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, and not actually tell you how you can solve that problem. So at Skhillz, we're going to have a reading boot camp where we're going to be able to help your kids to get from where they are currently, right?
Mhm.
Because it doesn't matter where they are and what happened. It can be fixed. Okay, it can
Right.
be fixed. So from where they are, so the first thing that we're going to do is do an assessment of your child to see where they are. What are the gaps that your child has? Because everybody has a different problem when it comes to reading. Okay?
Mhm.
Some of it may be some type of learning disability like dyslexia or whatever, but we're going to figure out what is the problem? Where are the gaps that your child has currently? And then we're going to come up with an individualized plan to solve that problem for your child, right?
Mhm.
Through our reading boot camp intensive. So it's like 4 days a week. They would need to be there for, and this has to be for the entire school year. You can't take time off because we need to get the child to where they are. Now, we think that we can, if your child is diligent and you are on board, we can get your child there quicker, of course, but you have to be committed to the reading process, which means
Process.
that they come to the program every single day, Monday through Thursday. And whatever we assign that as homework, but as family time, you also continue to do after they leave the reading boot camp. But
Right.
on top of that, I do want to give you go to um, some good strategies that you can use right now. So here's one of the things that we want to talk about, which is called the five finger rule. If you've never heard the five finger rule, here's how the five finger rule goes. One, you want to open a book. You don't want to start at the first page. You want to go to maybe second, third, fourth, fifth page. It doesn't matter, right? But don't go on the first page because the first page is usually the most easiest page to read, right? Then you want to have your child read out loud. Okay, not silently because you can't tell what's going on in their head. They actually have to read out loud. And then you want to raise a finger every time there's a word that the child cannot pronounce, doesn't know the meaning to, or just fumbles over too much. So every time that
Mhm.
happens, you're going to raise a finger. Okay. So this is how the count goes. If you have 0 to 1 fingers raised, the book is too easy. So after they've read the page, if you have no fingers raised or you only have 1 finger raised, the book is too easy for that child. If you have 2 to 3 fingers raised, the book is just right. Right? This is like playing Goldilocks and the Three Little Bears.
I was about to say that.
This is
We
like
call it
Gold.
the five fingers, but we might need to call it Goldilocks,
Right.
okay?
I know, right? It's like Goldilocks and the Three Little Bears. Okay, so 2 to 3 fingers, the book is just right. And if you get 4 fingers, the book is challenging, right? But could be stretched. And if they have 5 fingers, the book is too difficult. So if they have the 3 fingers, the 2 to 3 fingers, which I said is the just right book, you have them keep reading it over time. And once you figure that there's proficiency, then you move them to the 4 finger book. Okay. But it doesn't mean that while they're working on the 2 to 3 finger book that you negate the 4 and 5 finger book. Now, this is your job as a parent to read that book to them.
Them.
Okay, so you're going to read that book to him, and this is an opportunity to also shore up their comprehension skills. So yes, they're going to read their book to you, right? And yes, you're going to ask them the 5 W's and 1H questions to for their comprehension skills, but you're also going to read to them, because when kids listen to people reading, they get the way that words should be called and annotated, because we stop at periods, we pause at commas, and when something is exciting, we raise our voices and we read with emotion. That is part of reading as well. So you definitely want to do that. And just to wrap it up, remember that from K to 2, we're learning how to read. From K to 2, or from pre-K, because my kids learn how to read in pre-K. So from pre-K to 2 years old, you're learning how to read. The reason why over 5,000 kids in like Alabama got retained in third grade is because from third grade to 12th grade, you're reading to learn.
And
So
that's a
different.
different episode.
Yeah. Okay, we were right on point with that one. And that's a different episode. But so that is our little thing on the American literacy crisis. I really hope that this gave you some insight into what is actually happening. And if your child is struggling, that you reach out to us so that we can help your child. Because we really, really, if your child doesn't know how to, there was one other statistic that I did want to read off to you guys before I left, because this was fascinating to me. So, what was it, Julia, that I had said? Something about how it impacts the economy.
We talked about a few things.
I know.
This is like a passion
but
topic for us. So we talked about a few things.
yes, but okay, illiteracy, I remember it. Okay, yes, here it is. I found it. So low literacy cost the US $2.2 trillion
Ooh.
annually, with a T, not an M, not a B, a T. $1 trillion annually in lost productivity and other economic factors. Do you know why? Because if I have a reading comprehension problem, it is going to take way longer to train me to do something than if I understood what I was reading and you could give me instructions verbally or writing, and I just go ahead and execute it. So take that into consideration also. People who are hiring,
Alarming.
people who are teaching, parents, people who have to communicate, customer service people, please take all that we have said into consideration as to why your job or your interactions with people sometimes can be so exhausting, can be so difficult, because we have a literacy crisis in America. Anything you want to wrap up? I talked a lot.
Yes, but no, no, that's great. But come on, you're the literacy teacher guru. So I you know me, I let the expert do the expert talking. But we've shared the crisis, we've shared the solutions, some solutions with you as a parent that you can do with your child. And we're also letting you know that we also have solutions available for you at Skhillz Academy. So when your child enrolls in the school, that's a part of the process for them. So this comes with their learning experience. However, outside of that, we also have just the reading bootcamp if you want to sign up for that specifically. And that is also a separate program that is offered, because one of the things that we are truly, so Tracy is that ELA English reading, writing, literacy, and has been that her entire career. And my love has been working with students with disabilities, and along the exact same lines, being able to give them those foundational steps that are missing in their academic learning experience. The challenge was I got them in high school. So it was a lot more challenging to close that gap in high school
Yeah.
as we are proposing currently. Let's get this started at kindergarten. So, for any further questions that you have about how we can support your child with their reading levels, with their literacy challenges that they may be having, or advancing them from where they
Mhm.
currently are, because that is also an option,
Mhm.
advancing your child from where they currently are, reach out to us at skillzacademy.org. And thank
Yep.
you for joining us for another episode of Smart Start with Skhillz Academy.
Bye.